go live now.
Hi folks, good to see you. Very, very good to see you. So Emily Yoden here from the London Buddhist Centre, and we're coming from this Tuesday evening, on this rainy Tuesday evening in East London here in Bethnal Green. It seems like God, the weather has mirrored the mood of man in this instance, with all the I suppose the chaos that's been happening in the last few days, and the bad news and the likes. And I'll say all a bit more about it as we go. And it's been slightly rainy here, but anyway, that's okay, because we're tuning in, and we've got a meditation class that we can do now, and of course connect with something of positivity, metta, encouragement, all of those qualities that we're looking to develop. So while the world outside will do what it's doing, and the weather will do what it's doing, we of course always have a choice, and we can follow a different path. So do say hello if you're in the chat box, or if you're tuning in. Put your name into the chat box and where you're calling from, where you're watching from, it's always good to hear from you. So David's here with us as well. Our tech support David is here tonight. So it's worthwhile probably just saying the situation that we're in has obviously changed a lot, and of course it's always hard to say now how much do we say about it, because it changes all the time, doesn't it? Obviously in this particular instance, with Christmas changing, that's a significant thing. I myself was due to fly off back to Ireland until the news came, and then so now I'll be here over Christmas, but that's okay. So many of you will possibly be feeling a little bit disappointed tonight, maybe a little bit downhearted, maybe your Christmas plans have changed. It's interesting, isn't it? I was certainly disappointed and a little bit downhearted, and also at the same time just thought, okay, all right, I might be disappointed and downhearted, but I have ways of working with that. I have tools I can use that I've been given, meditation in particular, but also all the things that we can do, like generosity, friendliness, all of those things that can help us to work with a situation. So of course we can be very, very grateful for those. I found myself being very, very grateful for those as well. So do say hello if you're in. If you're tuning in, it'd be good to hear from you. Do we have anybody so far, David?
Yeah. We've got Nina from New York.
Hey, Nina from New York, fantastic. Really good to hear you here, Nina. Very good that you're tuning in, so welcome.
Miriam from Donegal.
Miriam from Donegal, fantastic, from my homeland. So really good to have people tuning in from over the sea.
Anne Chorley from Woodford Green.
Oh yeah, Anne from Woodford. Really good to have you here.
Richard from Brighton.
Hi, Richard.
Someone from Manchester.
Someone from Manchester.
Yeah,
hi there, someone from Manchester.
It's bloody finger apparently. So.
Right.
And Julia from Tottenham.
Hi, Julia from Tottenham. So yeah, it's good to have you all with us. And what we'll be doing tonight is we'll be covering. We've been doing the series on the Metta Bhavana, so we're going to continue that particular theme, although I'm going to come at it from a slightly different angle, but we will be going into the whole area of metta. So before we do that, what we'll do is we'll just set up for a period of meditation. So why don't we do that now? We can just set ourselves up, and we'll have about 20 minutes or so, 15 maybe 20 minutes of just settling down, coming back into connection with the body. Just give people a moment to set themselves up. So the first thing we can do is just get a sense of connection and stability with the ground. So what we're doing at this point is just allowing the mind to slow down. It'll quite naturally slow down by itself. So connecting with a sense of physical stability will give a sense of mental stability, stability of mind. So to help with that sense of stability, we can just allow the floor to take all our weight. So just relaxing all our weight down to the floor, down into the cushion or the chair. So we can look to scan the body for any holding, any tension. So we tend to store tension in similar spaces, so looking to relax any holding around the thighs, and the large muscles of the legs. often so habitually hold our body that we don't even know we're doing it. So you can just imagine the area relaxing. That'll help to release any holding, any gripping. And then just checking for any tension around the gut area. Again, releasing the shoulders down from the ears, so just being aware of any tension around the shoulders. So they often creep up around the ears. Just imagine the area relaxing. And similarly around the eyes and the muscles of the face. So relaxing the lips, the jaw, the eyes, forehead. No need to hold the face in any particular position. Just aware of the whole body now. Particularly, we can become aware if there's anything in our experience we're looking to push away, wishing we weren't experiencing. Just seeing, can we allow that into our awareness, allow it into the meditation. So not pushing it away, not turning away from it, just allowing it be there. Particularly watching for any tension creeping back in. So we hold tension, we grip the body so habitually that probably what we'll need to do is keep on coming back, releasing each time, releasing a little bit more deeply, hopefully. We'll just creep back in quite unawares, so we can just come back to the body regularly, just combing through our physical experience, just ungripping any tension that's there. Bringing awareness as well to what's pleasurable in our experience is a very important part of meditation. So we don't want our meditation to become oriented to the uncomfortable. We also want to notice pleasure. That can be anything as subtle as the touch of our clothes on our skin, or the warmth of the room, or the quietness, or the sense of stopping. Just noticing the pleasure of that. You might notice as you rest your awareness on pleasure, that pleasure grows. Learn to notice subtle pleasures. And then just relaxing any effort we're making now in the meditation. Just sitting with the fruits of the practice. Okay, good. So yes, obviously, as I started talking about just at the start, we're in it feels like, I suppose, we're back into a difficult few days for many of us, and particularly coming up to the Christmas time. And of course now we can start to see light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully, with the vaccination efforts and everything that's going on. But that doesn't make it any easier, maybe, if we're missing loved ones or friends, whatever it might be, over the Christmas time. So, metta is always needed, but it's feeling like it's increasingly ever increasingly needed, particularly in the situation we're in. I mean, I find myself getting easily riled, easily grumpy, all of those things, particularly in moments of tenseness like this. It all brings it up much more to the surface. And the antidote to that is metta, is friendliness, is love. I've been particularly noticed, just how strong a sense of concern, a sense of friendliness, a sense of positivity, what power that has to turn our mental states around. I know I've been on the receiving end of it from friends in the last few days, and some of them who have noticed my mood shift as I've sort of realised, and I've had to replan what I was going to do over Christmas time, and I've been lucky enough to have friends that have really come in and helped me, and I've just really sort of noticed the power of it, the effect of it. So we can really, really use metta at the moment. It's so important, I think. I remember I used to do grappling sports years ago, about 10 years ago, so judo and wrestling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and things like that. And my coach always used to say you could answer about 90% of grappling questions with the answer, move your hips. And I always thought, later on coming to metta, I always thought that you could answer 90% of spiritual questions with the answer, develop more metta. I think there's probably a lot of, I think there's some truth in that, in the sense that most of our problems can be resolved with a greater sense of metta, more friendliness. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that our problems go away, but our perspective on them changes with more love and more friendliness. It's not that the difficulties of the world can be magicked away with more love. People will still get ill, people will still die, we'll still lose people, we'll still lose our jobs, all of those things. And of course that doesn't change with more metta, but our perspective on them does, and radically so at times as well. So I think we can be confident in approaching the world's problems with an attitude of what's needed here is always just more love, more metta, and lay our confidence on that, I think. So one of the things that I think we sometimes get wrong about the Metta Bhavana, or that can go slightly awry for us, is that we grab at it. We sort of, we want to sort of grasp it. We want to kind of get it and bottle it up. And of course that won't work. I think it's a sort of an effort level that we learn how to make that type of effort in the world of work, because that's the type of effort that works for us, a very sort of active, a very kind of utilitarian type of effort, a very kind of grabbing at ends or aiming at ends. So say, for example, we can make a particular type of effort in the world of work, and it will work, won't it? If, say, we put a lot of effort into creating a document or a presentation, that type of effort in the world of work and the world around us, or say if we want to get fit, for example, we go for runs, we're disciplined, we're hardworking, when we want to stop, we keep going, all of those things, that type of effort will work. Of course, there's a different type of effort that's needed as well, isn't there? In life as well, but particularly in meditation, which is a much more sort of receptive effort, which is an effort that sort of tunes into what's there already, that sort of tunes into our experience, but also something outside our experience that we're looking to kind of connect with. So metta is particularly true of this. We can, if we're making a particularly heavy effort with metta, it will tend to elude us. Yeah, it'll tend to sort of slip away. Metta won't be kind of rough handled like that. When we make a much more receptive effort, we tune into metta that's already there in our experience, but we tune into the metta that's out there in the room as well. We tune into metta that's out there in the room as well. And it will be out there in the room, or it will be out there wherever we are. We just sort of need to learn to pick it up. So more and more of meditations we start to develop in meditation is a learning to tune into the frequencies of metta. You know, you can think almost of yourself as a sort of a radio transmitter. You're looking to pick up the frequencies of metta, the textures of metta, the smells of metta, the tones of metta, the vibrations of metta. All of those things, we're becoming sensitive to them, not only in our experience but also out there. If you want to make that sort of a sort of crude dichotomy as well, we learn how to open up to metta that's out there. So we need to sort of learn to work in this way with the Metta Bhavana. And of course, it's not like that there's other things in life that you have to learn to do in that way as well. I mean, you can't grab at friendship, for example, or you can't, if you're looking to chat somebody up in the pub, you can't have a heavy-handed attitude to that. You need to be sensitive, you need to be aware, spontaneous, all of those things. And of course, so that receptive effort that's so needed in metta, we do use it in other parts of our life as well. Creativity, art, all of those things. Music, appreciation of music, creation of music, all of those things. So I think it's much more of that type of effort in metta that's needed. And of course, it might be a slightly underutilized way of working in the world that we have. If we live in a big metropolitan city like London or like Nina in New York, we'll be used to working probably in most places now, in most workplaces now, we'll be used to working in that very sort of head down, nose to the grindstone sort of way, and it won't work in meditation. But we'll have developed that way of working so strongly because it's so required of us in the world generally around us now. So we need to learn how to work in a more sensitive way, in a more receptive way. So one of the things that I've been doing coming into meditation, because I'm very prone to this sort of overactivity, to a sort of grabbing at the outcome that I'm looking to bring about, whether it be a concentration on the breath or an experience of metta, whatever it might be. I'm used to that very kind of workhorse style of going about it. So one of the things that I've been doing to try to tune into that more receptive way of working at the start of the meditation is just to do a period of just sitting, just at the start of every meditation. And that period of just sitting can often, for me now, so say for example I meditate for say an hour or an hour and a half in the morning, that period of just sitting might be 10, might be sometimes as long as 15 minutes. If I'm sitting for less time, of course, I'll probably reduce that time of just sitting. Now what we're used to, of course, is just sitting right at the end of the practice. So many of you will know we do a sort of period of just sitting just at the end of a meditation. And what it is the person in the meditation rings a bell and goes, now we'll have a period of just sitting. And it's usually only about a minute or so long, or 30 seconds long. And the way that it's sometimes taught as or described as not trying to meditate and not trying to meditate. So not trying to meditate and not trying to meditate. So that's fairly straightforward and simplistic. And I don't mean simplistic in the pejorative, I mean it's fairly straightforward. We can work in it that way. That's absolutely fine. Just to say a little bit more about, I suppose, what the just sitting practice can be. For me, just sitting is it becomes more like allowing the mind a period just to roam a little bit. Yeah. So we could say, for example, in just sitting, just completely let go. Yeah, just completely blob out. And actually at the end of a meditation, because we'll have developed a certain amount of momentum, that will work. We can just let go and the mind will be relatively settled and stable. If we're doing just sitting just at the start of a meditation, or if it's a larger part of our meditation, sometimes we could just sit doing entire periods of just sitting, say, if we thought it was appropriate. Might be needed at times. I wouldn't do too much of it, but at times. we'll probably need a way of working with it that's a little bit more structured. So one of the ways that I work with just sitting, for example, is I just allow the mind a little bit more space to roam. A little bit more space to roam. So I don't completely let go of the mind, because then what's probably going to happen is I'll just go off into prapancha. And I'm not also looking to keep the mind particularly focused on one area, like the body or the breath or Vedana or Metta or whatever it might be. I just allow it a bit of sort of space to roam. So it could be that I'm there sitting, I'm just sitting, and I come and I start with the body, I start with an awareness of the body. And then my mind, my awareness slightly goes off into an awareness of the breath. And then it might go off into the room, it picks up more sounds in the room for a bit. Then maybe it comes back to a sense of pleasure, it starts to explore a sense of pleasure, then maybe it slightly goes on to that pain in my shoulder. Yeah, so we're just allowing, with that way of working with just sitting, we're just allowing the mind to move. We just allow it to sort of go around, as if like, say for example, you had a dog and you were looking to house train them, or you were looking to train them generally, and instead of starting with a kind of very rigid approach with the dog, where the dog was going to sit on command, you just allow a time for the dog to just sort of go around, to roam around. And then you might bring it closer and closer in, more and more obedient, more settled, until you get it sitting, until you get it sort of doing all the things that you need it to do. You could have a period where it's just to let sort of roam around a bit. Now the mind, just like the dog, of course, will then sort of want, it'll want to go even further than it's allowed. So it might go off then. Probably what will happen in that way of working is the mind will go off into prapancha, or proliferated thought. Yeah, it'll go off into that kind of storytelling that our mind goes into in meditation. So then we can just bring it a little bit back in again. Yeah, we can just bring it a little bit back in again. So that way of working with just sitting is we're allowing the mind to roam. As the mind goes off, as it quite naturally will, into periods of prapancha, proliferated thought, storytelling, whatever it might be, we just bring it slightly back in again. And we just allow it to roam in that area of, well, experience of the body, of the breath, of pleasure, of any discomfort that might be there, any tension that might be there, metta, all of those things. We just allow it to sort of roam around that. And so what we'll start to develop with that way of just sitting, particularly say if we do 5-10 minutes at the start of any meditation like that, is we'll start to get into a much more receptive space. To a space that is a much more kind of much more even level effort, a receptive effort, a mature effort. Oftentimes people say that the most concentrated that they get is just when the meditation bell goes at the end, or just when somebody says a period of just sitting. And that's probably because what we're doing is we're making too much effort in the period up to that, and then we're allowed to let go of it, and then when we're allowed to let go of it, we relax a bit, we become more receptive to what's there, and all of a sudden we're concentrated, and then we feel like, oh God, now I want to sit for another half an hour or something like that, and I've got to get up and go, potentially. So we don't want to have that happen, so that all we're doing, that we're getting concentrated in the last 60 seconds of a meditation. We want to start to learn that level of effort that's a little bit closer to just sitting, and a bit more relaxed, a bit more open, a bit more receptive. So what I've been doing, say, when I do that 5 to 10 minutes of just sitting, is then as it comes into the meditation, we can try this now, we're going to set up and try a Metta Bhavana now. As we come into the meditation, we've done 5 to 10 minutes of just sitting, and then as we start in the first stage of the Metta Bhavana, we make a little bit more effort from the effort we've been making. So just a touch more effort from the effort we've been making. And we might find that works a lot better with the Metta Bhavana, instead of this grabby sort of a workhorse style of working the meditation. We just make a touch more effort than the just sitting effort we're making, and we'll just see how that goes. particularly been receptive to metta in our experience and metta around us in the room around us, or with people around us, whatever it might be, in the universe around us, whatever it might be. So we're going to try that now. So we're going to set up for a period of meditation now. And so I'll talk us through that again. We'll do about a half an hour of meditation, and then we'll have a break. We'll have a 5-minute break. So why don't we just set up for meditation now, and I'll talk us through that again, and we'll do a Metta Bhavana. And just coming back to a sense of connection with the floor, stability. And again, just checking checking if there's any tension that's come back into our physical experience. It's possibly crept back in again, so just looking to relax it. So we'll just sit for about 5 or 6 minutes now. I'm going to try this just sitting. As a preparation for the Metta Bhavana. Allowing the mind to roam a little bit through our various fields of awareness. So through our physical experience, our emotional experience, the breath, maybe the sense of the room, the sounds of the room, brightness in the room. So we just allow our mind to wander in that way a bit more freely than we usually would in the meditation. wanders into thought, which it will do at some point, just bring it back into that slightly broader field that we're allowing it to move around. So there are limits as to how far we'll allow the mind to wander. And we're allowing the mind to wander spontaneously. So just as it wishes. We'll move into the Metta Bhavana now. And just as we move into the first stage, we're going to make just a touch more effort than the effort we're making with just sitting. Just want ever so slightly more effort. And just seeing how that goes. stage metta for a good friend. And we might have noticed ourselves slightly over-efforting again, particularly if it's our tendency, so we can just go back if we like to a period of just sitting in between the stages, 30 seconds or so, before going into the next stage. Third stage now, metta for a neutral person. So just checking any tension to see if any tension has crept back into the body. So one of the surest signs of making too much effort in meditation is that we're grabbing or holding or tense somewhere in our physical experience. So just relaxing that of some. stage now. Metta for a difficult person. So being receptive to the metta in your own experience, but also receptive to the metta in the room with you. So like a radio antenna, looking to tune into the frequencies of metta, the vibrations of metta. Stage now. Metta for all living beings. just relaxing all effort now we're making in the meditation. So just sitting for a moment. And then when we're ready, we can open our eyes and bring the meditation to a close. Okay, folks, good. So what we'll do is a little bit later than usual, but we'll just take our 5-minute break now. And do, if you have questions, get them into the chat box. David will call them out to me, and so we'll have an opportunity for me to answer them when we come back. So do put your questions into the chat box, and we'll get to them. So yeah, why don't we come back now in 4 minutes' time? So 1:15, we'll start again, and we'll see you all there again soon. Okay, so see you in a moment.
that is now.
Oh, we're on music, good, okay. Okay, folks, so hopefully you're all back. You have an opportunity to have your cup of tea or glass of water, whatever it might be. So yes, hopefully we have a few questions. I believe we have a few questions in the chat box. So if you don't have your question in there yet, do put it in. And David's going to call them out to me now. So we'll get to around to answering a few of them, hopefully all of them. David, do you have any?
Yeah.
Just off the top.
So Liz asks, what do we do when emotion unexpectedly floods out, e.g. tears start dripping?
So Liz is asking, what could you do, what should you do when emotion unexpectedly sort of flows out, so you get a bit teary or whatever it might be. What happens, I think, with meditation, Liz, is that we become more and more integrated with the various aspects of ourselves that we're oftentimes not in touch with. So many of us have a difficulty in experiencing the full range of our emotional lives a lot through the day. Maybe we've become slightly numbed, maybe we've pushed certain emotions away quite a bit, might be a little bit of a hangover from childhood, all sorts of reasons that we can do that. And what meditation does is it starts to bring the various parts of ourselves, the various parts of our personality, our emotional world, all our kind of small little aspects of ourselves more into consciousness. It brings those more into consciousness, and they can often erupt. So meditation, if emotion is erupting very strongly into meditation, it's probably a sign that you're slightly out of connection with those emotions, and then they're coming up very strongly in meditation. But that's really good, because of course it means we're connecting with those things that sometimes we're not in, aspects of ourselves that we're not in connection with, or that maybe we're trying to push away. So that's really good in meditation if they're coming up. And then we'll start to develop more and more of a dialogue with those various aspects of ourselves, and hopefully they should become less distanced from us, so that you won't have those very strong eruptions like that, because we've been more in connection with them through our sort of regular quote unquote daily lives. So really, really good sign, and just keep with it. It's generally a sign of progress, and you want to develop that dialogue a bit more. You want to come into connection with the emotions. Actually, in meditation, it's really important. If the emotions aren't in a meditation, our mind will go elsewhere. It'll slip off elsewhere. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Mehmet asks, how do I practice metta towards people who disrespects yourself and frustrates you? Someone we've been struggling with for the moment.
So Mehmet asks, how do you practice metta towards somebody that you're finding difficult? Well, of course, there's that stage in the Metta Bhavana, isn't there? There's the difficult person stage in the Metta Bhavana, where you bring to mind somebody that you're finding hard. And of course, we all have somebody generally, unless we're the most good-natured of people, we generally all tend to have somebody we might be feeling a little difficult, maybe a little bit of aversion or ill will to at any one particular time. It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you're anything like me, Mehmet, often will move, that person will move around, will have somebody that we're not totally at ease with at any one time, or maybe we're feeling really angry towards at any one time. And then what you might notice is that oftentimes we can just pick that up, that annoyance that we have with somebody, and just take it off the person that we've put it on, and just put it onto somebody else. So I've noticed this, for example, oftentimes with people I live with, there's usually somebody that I'm not completely at ease with, and I'll just pick that sense up, and often it'll just move around. So I've noticed down through the years that it's not actually to do with the person. Oftentimes it's not to do with the person, it's to do with me. Somebody else gets that particular projection that I'm doing at the time, but I tend to shift them around. They can be shifted around. So the first thing to notice is that often it's just us doing it. That's not to say that oftentimes people won't harm us or do us disservice or whatever it might be. But our ill will, our aversion towards people, or our anger or hatred towards people often ticks along at a fairly steady place, and we just sort of move it around to different folks. So really kind of taking responsibility for the ill will that we have, the anger that we have, the aversion that we have, and going, okay, it's me that's doing this. All right, the person may not be behaving in an exemplary manner, but it's still me on some level that's choosing to become angry. Can I take responsibility for that? Because of course it's really painful being angry with somebody, isn't it? It's really painful being out of connection with somebody, or wishing somebody harm, or hating somebody, or whatever it might be. The intensity of it might vary, but it's painful for us, isn't it? The Buddha likened it to picking up a hot coal to throw at somebody. Yeah, you pick up a hot coal, you might or might not hit the person that you're throwing the hot coal at, but you're definitely going to burn yourself. You're going to damage yourself in the process. So we harm ourselves in harbouring ill will towards somebody, irrespective of how justified we might feel in that ill will. We still harm ourselves in doing it. So of course the Buddha's vision is that irrespective of what anybody did to us, Buddha's enlightened vision is that irrespective of what anybody did, irrespective of how cruel it might have been, we would not experience ill will towards that person. Now that's a high ideal, isn't it? A very high ideal. But the Buddha was really emphatic about it. So he said to his disciples that if you were to be taken by bandits and sawn in two, and you felt so much as a thought of ill will towards those bandits at the time, you would not be disciples of mine. He said you would not be disciples of mine. Now, of course, he's talking to very advanced monks in this particular instance, monks or nuns in this particular instance. So he's got them to a very high standard. Of course, I don't think we can possibly, it's unlikely we're going to be able to hold ourselves to as high a standard. But the Buddha was emphatic that any ill will was not justified from the enlightened viewpoint, from something that had happened to us, or somebody had done to us. We need to start from that place, and of course realizing the suffering that we cause ourselves through experiencing ill will. It just doesn't work, ill will. I mean, it's ironic, isn't it? We sometimes, the one thing that we want to do when we're feeling aversion or hatred towards somebody is to destroy them from our experience. We do not want them in our experience. If we're in a room and they walk into a room, we sort of like, oh God, we can feel them there, can't we? And we want them out of our experience. But of course, if we're experiencing hatred or ill will towards somebody, we do the exact opposite from getting rid of them from our experience. We pick them up and we carry them around all day. We know that, don't we? It's sort of like if we're really feeling angry towards somebody, it just crops up. They just crop up minute by minute, hour by hour, and we can't get rid of them. The one thing that we want to do, we can't do. So ill will or hatred doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It causes us suffering, and it doesn't work. So we have to start from that basis in working with people that we're finding difficult, and then work from there. More metta, more love, more friendliness, and the Metta Bhavana being key to that, of course. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, Lawrence from Manchester asks, basically when he meditates he can produce metta for positive emotions, but when he opens his eyes and finishes meditation, it kind of disappears. Do you have any suggestions to keep it going? He's been trying meditating with open eyes.
I wouldn't think it's to do with the opening your eyes, Lawrence. I would imagine what it is that you're still building up. I don't know how long you've been meditating, but I'd imagine possibly what it is, you're still building up those reserves of metta a little bit, that you're still kind of generally developing a sense of metta for yourself and for the world, and that can take a little bit of time. sitting to regularly meditate in Metta Bhavana. I noticed this, for example, that, I can sit, I can meditate in the Metta Bhavana. And then there's this really strange thing that sometimes can happen, whereby if I've had a really good Metta Bhavana, I can set my watch by it in about 5 minutes, usually the time that it takes me to get up, tidy my meditation gear away, bow to the shrine and walk up the stairs into my community above the LBC here. I'll be in a bad mood with somebody. And I can set my watch by it if I've had a really good Metta Bhavana, if I've developed lots of friendliness. And I've just come to expect it. I think what happens is the mind just slightly, you take the mind and what's used to a very sort of cramped small space, and you open it up and you warm it up. And of course the mind whips back as soon as we stop meditating. It whips back into its regular position, but it overcompensates because it doesn't like that open, warm place. It's not used to it. It's not habitual. And so it goes back into kind of cranky or tight mental states that it's more used to. But of course, that's just a case of continuing to open it out, stretching it out, putting more metta into our reserves, getting the mind used to that more open, warm state. And then before you know it, I think probably what you'll find is that metta you're experiencing on the mat is under your cushion is spreading out into the world around you. But it's slow and gradual, but most definitely noticeable if we stick with meditation over weeks and months and years. So yeah, hopefully that helps. So we might have time for one more question, David, if there's one more.
Yeah, there's lucky there is just one more.
Great.
Erica asks, I've sometimes wondered if I can have myself in the fourth stage.
Oh yeah, so with Erica was asking if you can have yourself in the fourth stage. No, I don't think that's a good idea, Erica. Partly because I think often people, this is so often a difficulty with people, I think, that they find we find ourselves difficult. We don't relate to ourselves well. Often what that is that we're too present to ourselves. We're too slightly aware of ourselves. What I found with the Metta Bhavana is that as I've practiced meditation down through the years, this whole idea of liking myself or not liking myself has just been has become the wrong way of thinking about it. As I've meditated, and I can say, I experienced quite strong depression in my late teenage years, in my early 20s, and I didn't like myself. I had that, depressives don't tend to like themselves. I had quite an intense depression at one point. And as I've meditating about 10 years now, I've become more confident, more outgoing, more warm, more positive. But I wouldn't say I like myself. It's not the way I've sort of related to myself. It's more like this whole idea of myself has just faded into the background. So it's not that I don't like myself either. But the whole idea of liking myself or not liking myself has become less relevant. I've just sort of forgotten myself a bit. The guy who wrote Master and His Emissary, for the life of me the name has slipped. Ian McGilchrist, that's right. I was looking at an interview he was doing the other day. He was talking about the contradiction in the American Constitution of the pursuit of happiness. So the American Constitution, it gives everybody an inalienable right to pursue happiness. He said this was a total contradiction. He said happiness is a byproduct of what happens when you forget yourself. Happiness is a byproduct of what happens when you forget yourself. And I really thought, oh no, that's absolutely right. Happiness is a byproduct of what happens when you forget yourself. And that's been my experience of becoming more positive and more outgoing, and all of the things that you could in some ways you could talk about as liking yourself more. it's actually just been a process of forgetting myself, of becoming less present to myself, less of a concern for myself. Not none of a concern for myself, but less of a concern. So I think actually if we start to put ourselves in the fourth stage of the Metta Bhavana, it can slightly reinforce ourselves being present to ourselves all the time, of being slightly over concerned with ourselves, of being slightly kind of constantly evaluating ourselves. Really what we actually need to do is develop metta for ourselves, but of course metta for ourselves won't ever be separate from metta from other people. One of the ways that we can develop metta for ourselves, for example, is develop metta for other people. So you can't make a distinction between those two. So just allow, yes, taking part in that metta and it being metta for ourselves as well, but actually in the end just doing our best to just forgetting ourselves, not being too worried, not being too concerned. And the rest of the Metta Bhavana, stages 2, 3, 4 and 5 are very much orientated to this. So I would I wouldn't put myself into the fourth stage. You can I wouldn't do that. That would be my advice. So hopefully that answers your question, Erica, and that's all we have time for today. So really, really good that you were able to join us, folks. Really good having you here, and do get onto the winter retreat. So the winter online retreat is coming up now. It's starting on the 27th to the 1st of January, 27th of January of December to the 1st of January. So you can go on. I think David's going to put up a link there. You'll find that in the chat box, but you can also go onto the LBC online website, London Buddhist Centre online website. Do sign up for that. It's going to be really good. So if you have a few days over Christmas, 27th to the 1st, that you've not got anything planned, those online retreats are really, really good and do create a really tangible sense of connection and friendship and warmth and community. So hopefully see some of you there. And also just to say as well, we really, really appreciate and need your generosity in the here for the centre at the moment. We want to continue reaching out to people through things like the winter retreat, reaching out with a sense of dharma, of connection, of the liberating potential of the Buddha's teachings. We want to continue reaching out. So we really ask, if you're in a possibility at all to make a contribution to that, David will put up the link to do so in the chat box now, and anything that you can give is massively appreciated. So thank you so much for that. But that's what we'll leave it there for this evening, folks, and hopefully see you soon. So very good having you with us, and do enjoy your Christmas if I don't see you online before then. So take care. Yeah. Well done. Great.
Well, so you got some